សួស្តីឆ្នាំថ្មីបងប្អូនអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នា Welcome to Khmer Voices, where we shine a spotlight on the achievements of the Cambodian diaspora around the world. I'm your host, Vanni, aka Vanny. I attended and did a short presentation at the first ever Khmer Diaspora conference organized by Dr. Sue at the end of March this year, so just a couple weeks ago. And the energy there, let me tell you, is still permeating nearly 2 weeks later. Akun Traun, Dr. Sue, for this magical weekend. I'll talk more about the conference and share my takeaways in the next episode, so listeners be sure to come back for that in a couple weeks. Today, I'm sharing 7 on-the-spot interviews from the conference. I don't know how many of you are on Threads. I am. I like that it's not Twitter or X, whatever you call it these days. There seems to be a kinder community vibe on Threads, similar to how Instagram was when it first came out. Anyway, shout out to Cathy Chen, who goes by the handle Triggered But Curious on Threads, who asked these following 4 questions back in February. They're so good, I asked her if I could use them in a podcast episode. So thank you again, Cathy. Okay, what are these questions? Question 1. What did you once reject that you now understand differently? Question 2. Are you rediscovering parts of your heritage you once pushed away? Question 3. Are you finding new meaning in old traditions? Question 4. What part of your upbringing are you slowly making peace with? As I said, I had the opportunity to interview 7 incredible individuals, and most of them I asked all 4 questions. The themes of identity, understanding, and family came up a lot. I hope you enjoy this, and I trust you'll hear something that speaks to you. Now, the first person interviewed is Linda Tak from Massachusetts. She shares a bit of her background in the interview, so I won't say much now. Here's Linda. Hey, Linda. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I have a few questions for you. So the first one is, what's something that you once rejected, now understand differently?
What I once rejected and now I understand differently. I think just like my understanding of Khmer history is not just about the genocide. It's also like very rich history of like prior to the war and like also like just like becoming more I guess just more like sensitive to like my parents' experiences of having to assimilate very fast like when they came to the United States, and also just like forgiveness and like empathy. So not really rejection, but more so just like being more sensitive to that and more accepting and more I don't know, just more empathetic. Yeah.
So it was your parents' history that you didn't really understand before.
Yeah, I didn't really understand my parents' history because it's not taught in school. I grew up, in Danbury like public schools, and I was mostly like taught about, the American history. Didn't really understand and really learn about what Cambodian history is besides, oh yeah, like there was a war. My dad is a Cambodian genocide survivor. I didn't know anything besides that he came like through Thailand and then, had to assimilate and come to Danbury. And, I think for the longest time, like it was just a lot of confusion. I didn't really understand like why they were like, at first very hesitant to want to talk about their experiences. And the only time like I kind of like learned about it more was like when I took like an ethnic studies class in college, and I kind of felt that that's kind of overdue in a way. But I think like after taking those classes, I took a class specifically about like the experiences of refugees, and like it was a class full of like children of like refugees from like Vietnam, Cambodia, and like we like just had like a moment where we were like crying all the time, like literally a class that we were just crying, just like trying to like just like grapple with like the struggles of growing up with parents who are very suppressed with their emotions. They went through a lot of trauma. They don't want to talk about it. And just learning to accept their history instead of just like pushing it off. And yeah.
Can I ask, how old are you?
I'm 26 today. Today's my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Thank you.
Are you going to be celebrating later?
Yeah, I'm kind of sick right now, so this is kind of my celebration. But yeah, I was looking forward to like coming to this event and just meeting a bunch of Cambodian folks and connect.
What parts of our heritage are you rediscovering that you once pushed away?
So I think not something that I pushed away like growing up. But like I think so. My dad is a monk. He was a Cambodian monk. He came to the United States. He's Khmer Krom, so he came from Vietnam and then was a refugee. Came to the United States and to Danbury, and he served at the Buddhist temple. And so the longest time, like I've been growing up with the Buddhist religion in my life, right? You know, going to a temple every Sunday, celebrating with my family. And I recently graduated college, and during college I was like not as close to like my culture and my religion because I was far away obviously from my family. And also like most recently I entered a very different space, a very like white predominant space. I worked in finance for a little bit, and I kind of felt like I had to assimilate and become like a shell of who I was. And you know, my culture and you know my upbringing wasn't really as like, I guess I couldn't be as close with the distance and also just like the situation that I was in. And I'm trying to reconnect with that. I moved back home, so I wanted to like have some time to just like heal and reconnect with my parents and you know talk with them. And even now, it's like even stressful now because like a lot of my their siblings immigrated, so they had visa applications 20 years ago and they just came. So it's really stressful because we're all like just trying to assimilate them and like you know get them caught up and learn English, get them into like classes and get jobs. And the economy hasn't been great with like you know the layoffs and stuff. And so I've been trying to like become more closer with my culture and my parents and you know just have those conversations that I once had. I think especially during college after I took that class, like I had the opportunity to talk to my dad and like interview him about his like you know we did like a voice interview about his experiences, you know escaping you know the war and coming to the United States and how he had to like work really hard. He was kind of just conditioned to like work really hard all the time. And I think that was really healing. Like I cried so many times and you know connected with my dad. And like most recently like you know during that like, period of my time when like I was in finance and like in New York, I wasn't as close to my family, you know. And so most recently I just visited Danbury, and so I feel closer, especially because me and my dad had like very difficult conversations, which is just talking and crying.
Is that why you're here today, to reconnect with your heritage?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, just being like with Cambodian people, it just like makes me feel more at home. Like going to these like talks, like yeah, it's just like I feel seen, and I feel like I kind of have like that vocabulary to like talk about my experiences.
I completely understand. I was just, no, don't apologize. Don't apologize. Are you finding new meaning in old traditions?
Yeah, I think so. I think for like, so I speak Khmer, but I don't read and write it. And for the longest time, I was always beating myself up. Oh, like I really need to learn Khmer. Like I need to know how to read and write it. But you know, just kind of like embracing it in my way. You know, like listening to like old like Sinti music and like connecting with my parents over like learning new recipes. Like that's like you know celebrating that tradition in my own way and like my own like you know yeah, just like my own way. And just like how you know new generation, you don't have to like you know read and write it, you don't have to like do all this stuff, but also just like being around the culture, just being around family, like yeah, it's really great. Yeah.
What part of your upbringing are you slowly making peace with?
Oh, that's a hard question. Slowly making peace with my upbringing. I think for the longest time I would always like compare myself you know to the experience of someone who like came here. Well, this is a really loaded question. Sorry.
When I started this podcast, I didn't realize that I would be so. I didn't realize that it would offer like sort of a therapeutic outlet for me as well. And one time, I just after interviewing someone, I just like cried because they had the words to convey what I was feeling, and they said things that I didn't realize I carried either. Yeah. So yeah, no, I completely understand.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd get so emotional about it. But it's just like every time like I do talk about my family.
Honestly, when Dr. Uy was talking, I was like,
yeah. And like our most recent class, I was just like bawling my eyes. I was like, oh my goodness, like this is like it's different, especially because like you don't have to like explain yourself, right? Like it's people who like very much understand the experience and like experience the same things as you're very similar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like I haven't really been asked these questions, like, you know what I mean? And it's like, whoa, I didn't really think about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's the conference to be thinking about it because yeah, as we navigate the next 50 years. I started talking to a lot of people on the podcast about just their past and how they got to their career. And it initially started as that, but then I realized a lot of the people that I'm talking to, they're about building community as well. And it started to morph into like, okay, well, I want to find these people to talk to that are not only excelling in their chosen career paths, but also how they're making an impact, because they're like, okay, well, yeah, I'm doing good now, but what's but that's not all there is that I want to do. I want to do more.
Yeah, I felt that way. Like I just felt like, I mentioned like working in like the industry that I was in, like you don't see Cambodians that much. You don't have communities of like you can talk about this, and like I felt like there was something missing, because that's like what I did like throughout school, right? Like trying to find Southeast Asian communities, like connecting with people like through volunteerism, and like yeah, I'm at this point in my life where I'm just like, okay, like what is it that I actually value?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I get it. Linda, there you are. Linda, what part of your upbringing are you slowly making peace with?
I think the part of my upbringing that I'm slowly coming to terms with and like accepting, being more gentle with is, not being embarrassed of like where I come from. For the longest time, I grew up first gen, low income, having to navigate the education system. I was on reduced lunch, all that stuff, and full ride, whatever. Like fully, like I've always been embarrassed of presenting that, very much in settings that were like privileged. And I became like a shell of myself, and I felt like I didn't have like a space. And so I think now like I'm slowly trying to embrace, my experiences are just as valid as someone else's. And I came here, I worked super hard, my parents worked super hard, we've gone through all of this, and it's not like I had to like pay them back or anything, but it's like I am enough the way that I am enough, right? And yeah, I think I'm just like, slowly coming to terms and like making peace that like, my experiences are valid. My voice is important as well. And, just because like I had something different, or like had like a history in my family where like my dad had to escape, a war torn country, and had to like, really just start from nothing. Yeah, it's just, I think that's also valid. And, I feel like, especially in the spaces that I was like in finance, like the work with that is not really recognized, right? And so
Recognized in what way? In the community?
like for not in the community, but more so like, for example, like in a professional setting, right? Like I remember like even just like in my class, like going into like, finance, like, people would talk about, oh, their parents were like, partners, VPs, this, I was surrounded by people who were very college educated. My parents are not college educated. They, yesterday I was helping my dad, try to do like an entry, like English class, like test, to place into English learning at the library, right? Like fully, like he doesn't speak too much English at all. And so I think just like, acknowledging like that work and acknowledging, that as value, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for your time. And one last question. What are you hoping to get from the conference?
Yeah. From the conference, I'm hoping to meet more Cambodian people and even like just like Southeast Asian people. I grew up not really like knowing that many. And I'd love to just like, have that community, and just learn from other people's experiences and just feel a little bit more at peace with my own experiences too. Yeah.
Linda, thank you so much for your vulnerability. I'm so happy we got to connect. Next, you'll be hearing from Ani Vong. She's an entrepreneur and photographer based in Lowell, Massachusetts. She's focusing more on photography these days. However, she's committed to empowering entrepreneurs through her work at the Entrepreneurship Center at Community Teamwork in Lowell.
My name is Ani, or Annie. I'm from Lowell, Mass.
What did you once reject that you now understand differently?
So even growing up in Lowell as one of the largest populations of Khmer people, I just still felt very disconnected from my identity for some reason. I'm not sure. And so like just over the years, over the time, just doing research and being more part of the Cambodian community, volunteering work and everything, I just feel like I'm just, I'm here. I've arrived, but I've always been here. It's just I never gave myself permission.
Are you rediscovering parts of our heritage you once pushed away?
Oh, absolutely. I hate to say that, but I absolutely am. Now, I used to kind of shy away from saying, "Oh, Cambodian," only because a lot of people don't know what Cambodian is, and now I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm Khmer," and here I am.
Telling someone like it's cool to be Khmer now.
It really is, yeah, yeah.
Are you finding new meaning in folk traditions?
I am. I think at first just learning about all of our traditions and how to apply that into the modern times. Just finding the ways where that balance is. And also, I was just thinking, I think part of the reason why I kind of rejected or felt disconnected from my Khmer identity is because we grew up in the US, obviously. And it's like we're always told like we're not American enough. And so that way we internalize how we feel. And so, I'm just glad I'm here now.
What part of your upbringing are you slowly making peace with?
Whoa, deep questions. Um, I think just making peace of the fact that I felt like I had to hide who I was, my culture, my ancestors, and everything, just because it was just hard growing up in the U.S. And so I'm making peace with that. I'm healing. I'm understanding my mom's trauma a bit more and being more forgiving of what she went through. You made me cry.
Ani, I know these questions would stir up some strong emotions, so thank you for agreeing to be part of this. And I'm so thankful you felt safe sharing your story with us. Okay, Wangpon, I don't think any more tears were shed in the remaining interviews, yet stay tuned. Responses remain powerful. Next up, all the way from the UK, here's Lida Kruger. She attended the conference to speak on the Reconnecting Cambodia project, which she co-founded. It's the first and only partnership dedicated to helping Cambodian families reunite through DNA after separation due to war, genocide, poverty, migrations, or adoptions.
My name is Lida Kruger, and I am adopted, and I escaped Cambodia just before the Khmer Rouge came in.
Where are you from?
I'm from the UK, and there are very few Cambodians there. And my name is Lida, which is the Cambodian name, and Kruger is my adoptive father's South African name. So it's quite unique, I think.
What's something that you rejected as a child, but now understand differently?
So when I was younger, my parents had hyphenated my Cambodian name, Lida. So Lida it would have been, but they hyphenated it so it became Lida. But no English person could spell my name, say my name, read my name. It was Linda, Lydia, whatever. So I was desperate to change my name, and also my South African kind of Boer Afrikaans name was quite sort of apartheid was quite fresh then. So, but the more I've searched for my own identity and realized that actually I know nothing now about where I come from and who I am, my name is everything to me. And I'm so glad I didn't change my name. And I'm sort of chastising my younger self for not being proud of my name. But I love my name and it is mine. So when I got married, I said to my husband, I'm not changing my name ever.
What part of your upbringing are you slowly making peace with?
I think my adoptive mother, English white family, I was adopted by an English white family who were amazing and are amazing. My father died a long time ago, though. They embraced, without any help in trying to understand adoption and identity back in the 70s when I was adopted. They, I think, did a really good job with raising me and trying to connect me with my culture. But my mother even admits now that she was very lazy about it, although there wasn't much about because of the genocide and the country was closed. She could have made a little bit more effort. She could have tried to find the people that were the gateway to my story, but she just didn't think that was important. And I'm not blaming her, but I just, as a 52-year-old woman, I'm still searching. I know there are lots of people out there like me, and I just wish that there'd been a little bit more understanding, I suppose, and effort from their point of view. But however, I've adopted my children. I've had rigorous parent training about how to include their own identity in their upbringing, and it's sort of part of my DNA now anyway. But, they didn't know. They didn't know.
Guess what? Lita has agreed to come on Khmer Voices to share more of her story, so I'm really looking forward to it. Okay, next interviewee is a person in their late 20s, Usaban. He's a photographer and multidisciplinary artist who seeks to explore his own identity through sexuality, body, the self, and most recently, through cultural and family background.
My name is Usaban. I was born in Bandambong, grew up in Asheville, and now living in New York City.
What's one thing you rejected in your childhood that now you understand differently?
I think when it comes to that, like growing up, it's probably food. Um, just because like where I grew up in Western North Carolina and Asheville, majority white folks. So when it comes to like, I remember going on a field trip where we pack our own lunch. I would just like have it and just like, I'm gonna eat this shit real quick without like, because like watching around like other peers, other kids in the class would just eat like regular sandwiches and things like that. But no, of course, now growing up, and of course like my dad have changed a lot more. Just like now I've been cooking a lot myself. It's just like being on a phone call with my mom, like, hey, am I doing this right? And like another way, just like talking with my parents and learning more about our food and cultures. And of course, like I think food is such an important part of culture, and I think history class should be taught with food, just because understanding how people live and sourcing ingredients and like, the relationship with people and food, understanding where things come from is very important.
So you're rediscovering our food as part of your heritage. Is there anything else that you're rediscovering as part of our heritage?
I think food is one thing, and I think it's the arts. For me, as a practicing artist, a lot of my work are conceptual, and being going to an institution here in the States, like my art education are viewed from like a Western lens, like conceptual art being taught from white cube space. But looking back, like travel back to Cambodia and interacting with other artists and understand like the value of certain kind of art or thing we might not look at art. It is actually like my fabric. A lot of people have seen things like, oh, that's just craft, or like certain thing. Craft and art just such a people put a certain labels to the thing. So just thinking about art like design and such from Cambodian, or it's like even like Khmer letters. Like I saw Chlat when we write our letter in certain ways, like where we were just rediscovering like traditional Khmer art and try to incorporate that within my own conceptual take. And it for me, it taught me like I built my own identity through Western culture and like Western art institution. And in the past couple of years, I have reconstructed that identity and put back my Khmerness into it. Just like I'm Khmer, the way my work should reflect on that identity. And a lot of my work are about identity, so it's only fair to learn and understand Khmer art and creep that into my own work.
When did you come to the States?
When I was 12.
Okay.
Yeah, like I moved here 2011.
Are you finding new meaning in old traditions?
Tradition, new meanings. I think I just actually we just talking about this with one of my friends about Khmer games, because it was just on in our mind, just because Khmer New Year coming up. So it's just with Khmer games, like a lot of just even now just helping with like um load load Gatsu and such different game of like yeah, just all the traditional game like with Ongoing and all those kind of stuff. Like I never really pay much attention to those growing up, like in Khmer, like Khmer New Year. And last year when I was at Watt in Brooklyn, one of the elders was try to teach the younger generation just to see that transfer of knowledge. Well, it was really inspiring to for me. So like one of my friends, we were talking about, yeah, we should try to learn this properly, and just like put it out. It's like, oh, this teaching each other this Khmer traditional Khmer game, and now we're just like reading and like searching. It's like, oh, okay, like we want to do it and we want to know the history behind it and play it properly. So we try to pass it around. Like maybe we will do that this upcoming new year.
Awesome. What part of your upbringing are you slowly making peace with?
Um, I think it's rest. Um, just seeing, because surviving is different than living, and seeing like the work ethic, just because of as our population, most people will know, like a lot of us just like, yeah, we have to work and work and work and work, just try to either it's like upward mobility, and then you just like constantly work, constantly working, just like if we don't, we gonna fall behind you, especially in the space here in the States, like we have to work extra hard. Even like in school, it's just we have to work a little extra, like with languages and stuff like that. It's just like, hey, it's okay to just take a little breathe, and rest is important. And it's not because all of us, if you ask a lot of Khmer diaspora around here, it's like sometimes we do feel guilty to just take a little break. You're like, okay, like I'm taking a break, like I'm not being productive. Like what does it mean? Like what does productiveness mean to us? And I think it's important to just like slow it down. Like we're not stopping, we just ease it out a little bit, clear our mind, and just like keep on working. And sometimes we get into that like um loophole of just like we gotta work, gotta work, and yeah, that burnout. I think that's like one thing that something just we've seen our parents, our elders working so constantly, and I'm finding the value of that. But at the same time, we recognizing that
You need rest.
we need rest and just relax a little bit, because like we're not stopping, we just resting for a little bit.
I want to thank Owen Usa for reminding me about the good times I had with Lotkasu. I'm going to be showing my kids how high I used to be able to jump. And yes, the importance of rest. Rest is something many of us are still struggling with, that we've carried from our parents who were forced to survive. And now we're here. We don't really need to be in survival mode, yet we feel guilty for resting. And I'm glad to know USA recognizes this and is working to break it. The next person I interviewed is someone who has supported Khmer Voices from the very beginning, before I even published an episode and shared it on social media. Her love for literature by BIPOC authors, and specifically Khmer's, drew me to her Instagram account, Beyond the Mekong. So after about 2 years, I finally got to meet Sophia Lee. Sophia inspires me with her kindness, her well thought out Instagram posts, and her desire to connect more deeply through language. I learned also in a different podcast that she was on that she's fluent in Spanish, which she picked up to better communicate with her patients.
I'm Sophia, and
Where are you from?
I'm from the greater Boston area.
Okay. What's something that you once rejected but now understand differently?
I think when I was younger, it was definitely like assimilation is the key to survival. And at that time, in that era, it really was the key to survival. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that assimilation equals erasure. So that now I'm trying to undo the process of the assimilation and excavate what does it mean to be Khmer? What does it mean to be Gon Khmer? What legacy do I leave for my children? How do they identify as being Khmer? So that's been a long journey, but it's also rewarding too to embrace parts of my heritage that I previously may have rejected.
Are you rediscovering parts of our heritage that you once pushed away?
One area that I had previously pushed away was when my parents used to listen to Khmer music all the time. And so because as a kid, I was learning music. So I was learning piano, and then later I was like in high school marching band. And what I didn't realize at the time was that the canon was Western classical music, and that was the standard. So anytime I heard other music, I just saw it as not as good. Whether it be Khmer rock and roll, even though it contained elements of American influence, or whether it be more traditional Khmer music, like at a wedding, all the different forms, I just didn't understand and I could not reconcile because I did not have the history and the relationship to it that my parents had. And so now as an adult, and now that I have kids, for example, we will listen to the Voice Kids based in Cambodia. And a lot of the children who go on that show, they will sing Khmer songs, but they often sing Khmer songs that are really old. And so it's super interesting to see how, like, after they sing that song, the judge will ask them, why did you choose that song? And they'll say, like, oh, my mom loves this song, or my grandma loves this song. Or sometimes they'll say, I notice other people, they win when they sing a really traditional old song, which is really funny. But so my kids, for example, there's one time where my kids listened to a song on there, and then I didn't recognize the song. I just thought, oh, they're just singing an old song. And so then I played the song when my parents were visiting, and then my dad says to my mom, do you remember this song? And she says, oh yeah, it was from that one movie. And so I didn't realize there was history behind the song, that the song was actually a remake. It was a Khmer version of a Chinese song from a movie, but it was the Khmer version. And it's a very famous song. It's called Jam Trotai Jam. So my kids sing that song now. And so for me, it's something that came full circle.
Do you have a favorite?
I do like that song, and I also like Sinsi Samut's Kung, was it Kung Pro Salang? I think that's the title of the song. Yeah.
Are you finding new meaning in old traditions?
New meaning in old traditions.
Maybe it's something that you didn't understand before.
For me, it might be the importance of reading and writing Khmer. So it's very much, my script is very much an old tradition, but I didn't learn to read it until I was in high school. And then my dad is a former teacher in Cambodia, and he was asked to teach at the temple. And so he brought us, and that's where we learned how to read and write Khmer. But it's not like I was reading Khmer proficiently at that time outside of being at the temple. So then I lost touch with it. And then later, when I moved to like the greater Boston area and started working more with the Khmer community, suddenly I needed to learn and read Khmer at a very quick pace, where I needed to be, because I work as a nurse, and so I needed to give out vaccine information sheets in Khmer, and I needed to be able to say, like, this is the vaccine that I gave you, and this is the information sheet. And so I need to be able to read the information sheet and show it to them. And so being able to read and write the language, I realize, is so significant for like everyday purposes, like understanding medicine, but also more recently, like being here in Lowell, I attended a CLA workshop many years ago. And one of the founders of CLA, his name, or co-founders, his name is Tararit. He did a workshop on poetry. And so I remember it was my first intro to Khmer poetry, and I didn't know anything about Khmer poetry previously. And he started showing us how there's different styles of Khmer poetry, that they have different structure, similar to, like, let's say, like limericks have their own structure, haikus have their own structure. So Khmer poetry, there's different styles, and they also have their own structure. And so I only learned about it for the first time then, because here is like a teacher who teaches Khmer who is sharing this information with me. And then fast forward like a year or two, my dad was teaching my kid like the months of the year or something, and so he says it in a certain like phrasing and intonation. So it's not just like January, February. He's like Mekara kompet meet near Mesa Utopia meet na. And so he says like all the months, And then later on, I said, oh, Pa, how did you? He's like, oh, I noticed that your cousins, they all know how to recite it because they remembered how I taught them. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And he's like, oh, but that's because I taught them in a certain poetry form. He's like, it's gakatek, which is like a type of poetry. So anyways, I was just so blown away because I didn't realize he used poetry to teach us Khmer. And it took me so many years of like, one, I have to be able to learn to read Khmer, and then two, I have to understand there's different styles of poetry, and then three, later to find out that it was very strategic. Yeah. Like what he taught us was in that poetry style. And so there were so many layers that I had to peel away slowly as I began to understand more Khmer reading and writing, and now like Khmer poetry.
So do you read and write fluently?
I can read and write.
Like, the subconsonants and everything?
I can read. Wow. Yeah, I can read and write. Yeah, I can read and write. No, I mean, I'm not like advanced. I'm not an advanced reader. I'm not reading novels, but I can read basic Khmer, like elementary level, probably. Yeah.
Seriously, the power of social media, particularly Instagram in my case, has connected me with so many incredible people, and Pachenda Bao is one of them. She's a Cambodian-American poet and writer and feminist stay-at-home mother in New York City. She was also a panelist in one of the sessions at the conference called Writing Ourselves into Existence, Making Space for Cambodian-American Literature.
I'm Pachenda Bao. I grew up in Virginia, but now I live in Queens, New York.
What did you once reject that you now understand differently?
I once rejected my mother's cooking, and now I realize how much time and work that she put into it, and I have such appreciation for her flavors, and it really has made me what I am today, like just appreciating all the different spices and sort of out of the ordinary things that I got to that were just normal for me when I was growing up.
Did you get Khmer food packed in your lunch?
No, I think I packed my own lunch.
Okay.
So I think it was like bologna sandwiches, but it was definitely, every dinner was Khmer food.
Are you rediscovering parts of our heritage you once pushed away?
I don't know if it was so much that I pushed it away, more that I just didn't know about it or didn't realize that it was mine in a way. I think that I might have spent a lot of my childhood and youth just sort of like bored in the corner of the what, or like different ceremonies, all the weddings. And now as an adult, I am paying much more attention to why and what and who is doing it and how we're connected.
Are you finding new meaning in your traditions?
Definitely. I think that I'm seeing a lot of feeling that connection to our past, feeling like, maybe when I was younger, it was a little alienating. I think probably because growing up in the United States, like, it just othered you in some ways. But now, as a grown up, now I see that it's like this link between me and my little ones and ancestors that go back like thousands of years. Like that's our lineage. That belongs to us.
What part of our upbringing are you slowly making peace with?
I think I'm making peace with the way in which my parents just had to hold back. I think they just, couldn't always tell me everything, couldn't always see everything about me. I think I probably was a very extra child. And, having my own extra children, I realize sometimes you just kind of have to lean back a little bit and let them find themselves.
All right, who's also packed bologna sandwiches? I did. Our Khmer lunches were gourmet and we didn't even know it then. I'm happy to see, though, that the little ones are embracing Khmer food because, like Usa said, Cuisine is a big part of our identity and history. Okay, this episode started with a young person, and I'd like to end it with an even younger person. They're our future, and I want to give you, my Voices listeners, a gentle reminder and the biggest kudos for your efforts. I know you guys, I know my Voices listeners care about sharing our heritage, and no matter how small they seem, you're making an impact on the next generation. Keep planting the seeds. My last interview is with Minda Sam. She describes herself as a queer, nerdy artist. She's currently studying in the commercial art field, and she credits her upbringing. She credits her upbringing for putting her in the position to embrace and honor her roots. She credits her upbringing for putting her in a position to embrace her whimsy and childlike wonder as well. Find her on Instagram and other interviewees in the show notes.
Hi, my name is Minda Sam. I think this is the right way to say it. Like Kiam Philadelphia, PA.
What did you once reject that you now understand differently?
Oh. To be honest, I am not sure I ever really entirely rejected Cambodian culture because, like, when I grew up, I was always taken to the temple, and my parents, especially my dad, he was always loving enough that I appreciated the Khmer culture that, at least the little bit that was shared with. I appreciated the little bit of my culture that was shared with.
That's amazing. How old are you?
I'm 22.
Are you rediscovering parts of your heritage you once pushed away?
I don't think it is necessarily rediscovering. It's more so diving deeper into my cultural heritage. So because, like, I think this is a very common experience with other Cambodian Americans, especially like second generation Khmer Americans, is that, like, we were always dragged over to the temple and other Khmer events, like, along with our parents and grandparents, with, like, never being explained to about any of these traditions or rituals that we're dragged to. Like, it still happens to me to this day, and it really does mean a lot to me that ever since my stepdad has entered into my life, like, many years ago, that he understands the belief systems, the spiritual systems, the rituals, why we do the things that we do. So,
Sorry, go on.
that's okay. So in that way, it really does help me and encourage me to really understand that part of me that I've always been curious about. Actually, I don't think I really ever actually pushed that side away from me.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
It's different from my generation. Are you finding new meaning in old traditions?
Yes. Oh, yes, for sure. Like, it's no longer just a backdrop for me as a minority in America. Voice crack. I have always felt awkward in, like when people would ask me, oh, like, why do you guys do this certain thing, or like, what is that food? Like, I've always tried to ask, like, what food, a certain thing or certain dish that my parents make, but they always answer like, I don't know. It's like, here, eat it. And growing up, my mom, I always tried to ask her, but I always tried to ask her, like, what are we doing? Like, when we do rituals in the temple or at home, and, like, more than half the time, it would always be like, oh, I don't know. And it really is drawing because as people who have survived the genocide and as children who are trying to, like, preserve the culture that was nearly erased and is not even, like, really in the global spotlight at all.
Not at all.
It is very much a pickle. I don't know. It's the first word that came into my mind. It's very much a pickle that, like, we're so pushed to be Khmer, preserve Khmer, Bantai. We're also, like, made fun of when we try to speak Khmer, and, like, they don't even know how to explain, or like don't even know why we do certain things. So like in that sense, how do we even know to be Khmer? How do we even understand that we are Khmer if we don't know where we came from or why we do the things we do?
What part of your upbringing are you slowly making peace with?
Oh, definitely the trauma that I grew up with. I feel like every time I meet a new person and I get closer to them in like any sort of extent, it always leads back. I always get led to trying to talk about my upbringing with other people. And I guess it's because like I understand that I am actively looking for a community to be with. So that it does give me a good sense of healing for sure. And it's just nice to be able to feel like I'm not alone in this like generational pain, this generational trauma, like this collective trauma that so many BIPOC or just people in general affected by colonialism have went through.
I end my regular episodes by asking the guests for one or two takeaways from the story, and I trust something somebody said here resonated with you. The takeaway I'd like you to walk away with after listening to these interviews is share your story. You never know who will be impacted by what you say. You never know if you articulated what somebody didn't even know they carried. That's what storytelling does. It creates connection and offers recognition. It's powerful. And as Gon Khmer, it's our responsibility to share our stories so that our history can never be erased. What resonated with you in this episode? If you're on Spotify, let me know in the comments. But if you listen on other apps, send me a DM on Instagram or wherever we're connected on social media. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a solo episode on takeaways from the Khmer Diaspora Conference. Samak Kuncharan for listening to Khmer Voices.